Well, hey guys, thanks for joining me. Today, we're going to do something just a little bit different. We're going to do an introduction to kayak bass fishing tournament style. I'm sure there's a lot of people who watch my tournament videos who have been sitting on the fence for a while, trying to decide whether or not they're going to stick their toe in that water. Maybe you're on a couple Facebook groups and have always had an interest in kayak fishing and maybe doing some kind of tournament, but you don't really know what to expect. Well, here's the video for you. We're going to go over just the basic necessities of what you need for kayak fishing, as well as some of the basic rules for tournament fishing in a catch, photo, release, or CPR style tournament. So, without further ado, here's your introduction to kayak bass fishing tournaments. We're going to start off by going over some gear that you need in order to participate in one of these tournaments. Now, in addition to the kayak and the fishing gear and the net and all the stuff that you normally use, you're going to need a few other things. Primarily, number one, a phone with an operational camera and internet access. Second thing you're going to need is a bump board. This is going to be the device that you use to measure your fish on. It looks kind of like that. I would highly recommend you getting a tether, because if you use this particular bump board, which is manufactured by Catch, it weighs about 300 pounds. I mean, it's not that heavy, but it's a heavy thing. And if you accidentally drop it over the lake, you're not getting it back. So a bump board of some kind, and it's not just of some kind. This is where you'll need to research the rules for your particular trail or your particular club that you want to fish with. There's a bunch of different styles. Hog trough makes an older, like a really light plastic. You got to be careful because not a lot of trails use that board anymore. This Catch one is pretty heavy. However, it's used in pretty much all of the tournament trails. It's a pretty standard device. But this is the time when you need to do some research into the club that you're going to be fishing with. They always post their rules online, so be sure that whatever device you end up using, that is actually acceptable for the tournament that you're going to be fishing in. Something else, it's not required, but I highly recommend, is some kind of ID holder. And in order to hold your ID while you're taking pictures. And then lastly, before you go on the water, you will need your ID, your tournament identifier, as well as a Sharpie. Now that sounds stupid, but you don't know how many times I've been on the water and there's been other guys out on the water and they don't either have their identifier or their Sharpie on deck. Paying your entry fee for a kayak tournament and then not being able to fish because you don't have your identifier or your Sharpie, that's kind of a bummer. So make sure you have those devices. Again, different tournament trails have different rules. The home trail that I fish in is Queen City Kayak Bass Fishing, the QCKBF. Again, they only allow their particular identifier. Some trails allow different identifiers, different devices. Some of them allow you to write it on your hand. Again, that is a great time and a great segue into, again, reminding you, whatever tournament trail you are deciding to fish with, always read the rules first. And the reason I say that it's important is because even though the process is the same, regardless of what trail you're fishing, each one of them has different little caveats. For instance, QCKBF is a 4 fish limit. That's kind of unusual. Most trails are either a 5 or a 3 fish limit. Again, that's why you need to familiarize yourself with the rules. QCKBF has a 12-inch minimum on your fish. Some clubs go as small as 8. So make sure you research the rules for the club that you're in. That way you are not disappointed and waste your entry fee. Now that we know what we need, let me show you a couple other things about the Turny X app. Now, if your club doesn't use the Turny X app, you can just go ahead and fast forward to the next part. Now, this is the Turny X app. This is what it looks like when you download it from the App Store. Familiarize yourself with the different features that you have there. The one we're going to concentrate on first is how to sign up for a tournament, and that can be done from this tournament registration button right here. When you click on the button, it'll show a list of all the different tournaments. There's a lot of them on there. There's a search bar at the top of the app, so you can just search and find the tournament that you're looking for and then click on it there. After you register for your tournament, you can see some very important information there, like start time, end time, your lines in, lines out. Also, if you scroll down, there's going to be a description box, and there's more information in there. It'll tell you information about where the weigh-in is going to be, who your tournament director is, your first cast time, your last picture taken time, and then who you need to contact in the event a problem arises. It's just good information to have. When you scroll down to the bottom of the screen, you will see there is a link to the leaderboard and there's a link to the tournament rules, and you can get to your tournament rules through this app. And that's kind of what they look like right there. Now the moment has arrived. You're there the morning of the tournament. When you arrive to your ramp, you're going to need to click this identifier button, and there you will find your unique identifier. This is the code that you need to write on your ID card, and that will be in all the pictures of the fish that you catch for that particular day. While you're in the app, I would also recommend clicking this check in out button at the top left of the Turny X app. When you check in, this will show the tournament director that you are at one of the legal launches for this particular tournament, and it's also there for safety reasons as well. Now, before you get on the water, be sure to wear your PFD. PFDs are required to be worn during the tournament. And while I struggle to get on my life jacket, we'll go over the brief rules of what's required for one of these tournaments. Unlike a boat tournament where you have live wells and you do a weigh-in, everything is done by inches, which is why we have a standardized bump board for measuring the fish. In QCKBF, we have a 4-fish limit, 12-inch minimum, and the whole goal of the tournament is whoever has the most inches in that 4-fish limit format. In QCKBF, there's a launch time and a lines in time, so that gives you 15 minutes to get to your fishing spot. And though it's an honor system, do the right thing. Do not cast your line until line's in. But once it's line's in, it's game on. Start catching your fish. Now, once you have your fish in the boat, now's the time to measure it. You're going to pull out your approved bump board for the tournament with your identifier. You're going to wet that thing down because it helps the fish and it doesn't jump nearly as much. Now that we have the fish on the bump board, we're going to go over some basic fish photography. Fish photography 101. Let's go over what needs to be in the picture for it to be a legal fish. The fish needs to be facing left with the mouth/nose firmly against the bump board. The eye needs to be in the picture. You'll see the gill plate. Nothing can be under that gill plate. Be careful because those little spots, they'll flare their gills and it's easy to get your hand under there. Do not put anything under this gill plate. The tail can be in either a pinched or natural position. The measurement is taken from the last line touched, so you can manipulate that tail as you see fit to get the maximum inches out of your fish. You'll see the identifier is in the photo and it's clear and you can read both my name and the identification. Now remember, the entire fish must be in the picture, as well as the photo needs to be taken from an overhead angle. So you don't want to show it kind of from the belly or from one side or the other. It needs to be centered on the fish from an overhead angle, and you need to be high enough that you can see the kayak in the background. Now occasionally you'll catch a fish that has a dead eye, no eye, or quite frankly just looks like it's on the verge of death. If there's ever any question about whether or not your fish looks alive or if it looks like it's going to be alive in the photo, make sure you take a video of the fish swimming away in a lifelike state. This has actually happened to me before where I caught a fish. It had a dead eye. It looked all glassy, and quite frankly, it looked like it was about to die. I had the picture taken of it. It looked absolutely awful. So this is the video that I sent the tournament director.
Hey, Vinny, or Blaine, this is the dead eye fish.
So yeah, stuff like that happens and you just got to be prepared for it when it does. So after you catch your fish, we need to submit it to the Turny X app. So once you're inside the app, you're going to click this Submit Catch button, and it's going to open up this screen. You're going to select the tournament that you want to submit the fish to. This is only applicable if you're in multiple tournaments. From this screen, you're going to click Browse Photos, and you're going to allow access to the photos that you have. From here, you'll select the photo that you'd like to use. Type in the length of the fish and then click the Submit Catch button. And then Submit to Leaderboard. And shazam, you're on the board. So now if you click the Standings button and then select the tournament that you're in, you should see yourself on the leaderboard. So now when you catch your next fish, follow the exact same process. It'll keep adding to your virtual stringer until you reach your limit, and then you can keep uploading fish and it will automatically drop out the smallest of your limit.
Well, now that you know the basics of how to fish one of these CPR tournaments, let me give you a couple little tips and tricks that I've learned along the way that can probably help make your experience on the water a little bit better. One of those things is your ID and how you write your ID number. Now, it sounds like a super easy way, a super easy thing to do. However, when you're out on the water and the sun's beating down on you, a lot of times that ID holder will have glare on it. And if you got glare on your identifier and you can't actually read your code, the fish doesn't count. And that's very frustrating. Being out on the water, you've caught your fish, you're down, you've got them on the board, and now you can't get a clear picture because every time you just get a glare from the sun beaming down on top of you that you can't read the identifier. Well, there's nothing in the rules that says you can't write your ID as big as humanly possible. So that's what my ID photos always look like. I always write it. I know the white is there for you to do. I'm sorry, all these dogs are barking. It's very distracting. But the white is there. Those are the blanks where you're supposed to write your ID. However, I take up the entire face of the ID so that literally I give myself the best chance of getting a picture without any glare on the ID holder. So that's tip number one. Tip number two is there's nothing in the rules that says you can only have one ID card per board. And as you can see, I always have two on there for that same reason. I hate glare. And when you're out fishing, it's hard enough to catch the fish. It's another thing when you're wrestling the fish, you got one of those little spots and he's wanting to fight with you. And then you take your picture and every picture has a glare in it, which is why I always have a backup. Not only is it a backup in case one gets wet, which again, you're out on the water, things can get wet. If your ID smudges and you can't read it, it's no good. So I always have an extra. I keep my extra on the board. So I give myself twice the opportunity to make sure that my picture counts when I actually take the photo. So that's a free one right there. Something that I would encourage you to do is a lot of the lakes that we visit, you don't have really good service. And that's always an issue. Some of the, like if you're down in Santee and I mean, you're out there in the middle of nowhere, you don't get great reception on your cell phone, which is why when you check in on the Turny app, you have to check in through the app. A lot of times you won't have good reception, and so the check-in feature doesn't always work that great. In fact, I have a personal experience where I checked in and the app said I was checked in, and then I'm out fishing and I get a message from the tournament director saying that I didn't check in, that the location services did not import or whatever. It said I was still at my house, which was not the case. So one of the things that I do is when I get to the ramp, I always take a picture of the ramp with me and my ID for that day. So I always do that just in the event something goes wrong. Technology doesn't always work the way it should. I have evidence that I was where I said I was going to be fishing, and I've got something to, it's like, you know, a ransom note, you know, when you have to hold up a newspaper with today's date on it. That's what your identifier essentially is that I was where I said I was on this particular day. That's something that I highly recommend that you do as well. When you do actually catch a fish, something else that I highly recommend is take as many pictures as possible. Pictures are free, so take it in multiple angles, move the fish around, take it again. The picture is the only evidence you have that you actually caught the fish on the day that you did, and you would be surprised in your excitement being on the water how in one photo the mouth is open and then you're still in the very next photo, mouth is completely closed, even though you notice no difference. So I highly recommend, don't just take one picture. If something's wrong with that picture, you don't have any backups. So always take multiple pictures of your fish. And I would recommend take multiple pictures, move him, get it down, adjust your angle, just in the event that there's something wrong with the sun's hitting a glare in a certain way. Always have a backup. Pictures are free. It doesn't cost you anything, and it may cost you something if you don't take your pictures correctly. Something else that is critical about taking your photos is always make sure that your location services are on. That is a requirement whenever you use one of these app-based tournament software devices, is that you have to have your location services on, because again, that is validation that you are where you say you were at the time that you caught the fish. So double check that. I oftentimes don't have my location services on for various reasons. I don't like people knowing where I am, but in this particular case, you want people to know where you are. So that's very important. Something else that is very important is the photo that you upload needs to be a first generation picture. By that, I mean, it needs to be the raw picture. So it doesn't matter if you have the fish and the orientation is flipped the wrong way, don't rotate it. The tournament directors are smart. They can look at it themselves. You might be modifying your pictures for a completely innocent reason. You want to crop the picture down a little bit, or you want to rotate it 90 degrees. Don't do that. Tournament directors are smart. They can rotate the picture themselves. You upload the raw picture. Something that I used to do is I used to label, like I used to get the little highlighter and highlight this was fish number 1. Don't do that. That's no longer allowed. So upload your raw picture to the app. Don't modify it. Don't crop it. Don't do anything. Just upload it straight to the app. Tournament directors can take care of the rest. Along those lines, another thing that's very convenient, when you're on the water, time is a factor. A lot of times, if you're taking a bunch of pictures, it's hard to tell where your first fish stopped and your new fish started. I'm always taking lots and lots of photos because the fish always want to have their mouth open anytime I take the picture. So I always take a lot of photos, and for me, I'm out there catching the 13-inch dinks all day long, and it's hard to tell where one 13-inch dink stops and the next 13-inch dink starts. So I would recommend is after you do your photos of your first fish, I just snap a couple pictures of my hand, and that way I have a divider. So when it comes time for me to upload the pictures, or I need to go back and look at the pictures that I uploaded, I know which one is which. That comes in very handy because after a while, all the fish kind of look the same. So that one's free. Well, guys, that's going to wrap up this video. Hopefully this will help you out. If you're on the fence, or if you're one of those Facebook wallflowers that's, again, a little bit timid or intimidated about sticking your foot in the tournament waters. It's easy to do. It looks intimidating. It's far easier than you ever think it is. Catching the fish isn't easy, but the actual process is pretty easy. If you ever have any questions, that's what the tournament director's for. That's why they get paid those big bucks. And if you ever have any questions, reach out to your tournament director. That's what they're there for. Again, hopefully this will help you out. Again, man, these dogs. Hopefully this little video will help you out. Again, read the rules. Each club is a little bit different, but they all have the basic same format. So that being said, I've got to prepare for my first tournament of the year out on the Yak and YOLO. So that's what you'll be seeing next week. But as always, I will be seeing you then. This is Josh. This is Abide Fishing.